briefly. Seth Smith, who's talked with us before, is, as Pam said, talking about the Daniel Boone Regional Library Community Archive and Digitization Initiative. Seth sent me a very short but funny bio. He is a public services librarian at the Daniel Boone Regional Library who's been involved in digital and news literacy projects for almost a decade now with the library system. His daughters, he said, are still trying to get him to join TikTok. So that's my bio.
Not working. I'm still refusing.
Thanks, Seth. Thank you very much for being here today. I look forward to hearing your talk.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again. I'm really glad to be here. Really, what we've tried to do this past year, well, actually, it's been a year and a half now, is engage people digitally. I think that's been really important. So we've had to really take all our programming online. You know, we haven't had any in-person programs. And so I'm excited to talk about this community history archive, just because you know, it is presenting the history of our service area to a wider audience, I believe, and an audience that might not necessarily see some of these great photographs and documents. A little background behind the community history archive. We did start this project in 2014. We applied for a big grant that we didn't get, but it was for something called Makerspace in our library, and that's become really popular in libraries throughout the country. We actually turned it into our studio on the first floor. Some of you have probably been in there. And that's a place where technology classes have gone on. We've done a lot of scanning, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We've done a lot of scanning either for the community archive or helping individuals scan their documents for genealogy purposes and things like that. And then this community archive was started, and that's been really quite successful. And we actually have, I'm not sure what the count is at this point, but hundreds of different images from all across our service area. So I'll show you some of those images and talk to you a little bit about the history of the project and some of the other ongoing projects that we have with scanning and digitization. So I'm going to share my screen here and get started. Yeah, so this is the front page of our community history archive right here. You can find it at archive.dbrl.org if any of you want to, if near a computer and want to go to that. It's also really good on mobile as well. So our content management system, it works both really well with mobile and desktop computers. So yeah, so we launched this archive in April of 2018 as part of a larger initiative to engage some of our service area. Part of that is introducing some more mobile services. We have the book Rover, for instance, and then I don't know if some of you have seen our book bike out. That's actually been really cool. And so we've really tried to engage the larger community with these different projects. And the digitization initiative is really trying to connect with the community on a larger level, getting them either as participants in digitization or being able to expose them to documents and photographs that they might not have. A lot of things are siloed in Boone County in different places. So we're trying to expose our service area to a larger number of historical documents. So the collections in this are the Daniel Boone Regional Library collection, the Missouri Bicentennial collection that was just started this summer, the Trouble with Normal collection, which is an underground newspaper that was published in Columbia for about 15 years. Midway One-Room Schoolhouse collection, Southern Boone County Historical Society collection, and our yearbook collection, as well as our One Read 20th anniversary collection. And that just got launched this week, and it's really quite enjoyable. I think if people are really into One Read, that's happening this September. It just, all the programming just started for it. Most of it is virtual, but there's some really great historical photographs of all the events and author talks in there as well. So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about the Daniel Boone Regional Library collection. We have a pretty vast archive of photographs here, and what it does is, I think, really gives a good history of our library system in general, but also old library technology. There's so many innovative things that we have actually done in this library system, and that's one of the reasons we're such a strong system. We engaged in technology very early on, and we also engaged in a lot of really interesting programming in really as early as the 1960s. So, so that's a very cool collection to check out. We're actually going to have our 60th anniversary coming up for the Columbia Public Library next year. So check out that the Daniel Boone Regional Library collection in the coming months. We're going to start having some really cool historical photograph galleries in there. Can anybody tell me what where this house was located? Yeah, Alice.
Stevens Lake. No?
No.
Okay.
Interestingly, it was located at the current location of the Columbia Public Library. It was a house. I'm not sure who the owner was, but it was an old farmhouse, basically, and we bought this property, and the house was eventually torn down. And the original property, actually, as you know, there was the original building was built in early 1970s, and this is what it looked like. There's you can see these young school kids leaving the front entrance of the building. It was renovated in 2001 and 2002. A little bit of controversy behind that because in some ways it was completely torn down and then rebuilt. But people love it now, and this is a great. I think this archive is a really awesome testament to our strength as a library and a lot of the history behind what we've done in Columbia and in Fulton and the surrounding region. We got tons of pictures of the bookmobiles traveling throughout the two-county area. And as you know, there at one time, we actually had Fayette and Howard County as part of our library system. So there are a bunch of photographs of the bookmobile and as well as the Fayette Library. They left the system in 1998, I believe. But lots of great history in that particular archive. There's also the Trouble with Normal collection. This is something that we really got lucky. We ended up collaborating with the with the University of Missouri Columbia on this. There was a library science professor who had a student who had come into this massive archive of underground newspapers, really recounting the music scene in Columbia, Missouri in the 1990s and then early 2000s. I don't know if any of you remember seeing these pamphlets. That's basically what they were, but they were underground zines basically, and they were, Boone Stiegel was the guy who published it, distributed it all throughout Columbia, especially in the downtown area. So if you remember like Salt of the Earth Records, the old Street Side Records, they always had copies of this. Great history of the music scene here that was so vibrant in the 90s and in the 2000s. Less so today, unfortunately, partly because of COVID, but some great stuff. So as you can see, this is a kind of a hand-drawn magazine, but that makes it really appealing in some way. Some ways, he was able to really branch out and do a lot of really interesting reporting on the music scene as well as politics. And check that out. We're trying to get the rest of the issues digitized. That was going to be part of something we were going to do this summer, but we're a small crew that kind of fits this in. We don't really have a full scale digitization lab, so it's, you know, something that we have to kind of do piece by piece to some degree. Then there's the Southern Boone County Historical Society collection. We collaborated with the Southern Boone County Historical Society on this and put up a wonderful selection of images. Some of these images you'll actually see if you go into the Ashland Library. It's actually, we have them on the sides of the walls in the Ashland Library as well. And then we also collaborated with them to get a lot more images in this collection as well, besides the ones that are in the library. So some really interesting photos of historic Ashland. It's, you know, a very rural community that has a very different feel from Columbia, even though it's very close. And there's really interesting pictures of agriculture and one-room schoolhouses, some of the people who live down there. So it's a really great part of our archive, because Ashland is it's an important branch of our library system for sure. Then there's many of you might know Mike Trial. He actually was one of the people who helped us get this initiative started. The Midway One Room Schoolhouse collection is actually based on a book that he published. And it's a really interesting collection of class photographs, pictures actually of one-room schoolhouses. And actually, I'm going to click on this just to show you. I don't think we have a picture on a slide of one of the one-room schoolhouses, but let me show you what I'm talking about here. So this is the Huntsdale Schoolhouse exterior. It was actually pretty large. It's not there anymore, and that's not really a one-room schoolhouse. That's a pretty big size rural school. But all the grades were, you know, put together in one building. There are some smaller ones as well. Check out the Lathrop School exterior here. Classic one-room schoolhouse right there. These existed until really until the 1950s, and then the consolidated school district started. And that was something that was a little bit controversial for some of these rural communities. They lost some of the neighborhood feel to their education. And as you know, if you studied some of the history of one-room schoolhouses, it was a little bit more collaborative. The older students would help the younger students. People would kind of go at their own pace, and very different than today in some ways. Here's a photograph of a class play, I think during Christmas. And think that's Huntsdale, and then this Everett, grades 1 through 8, class photograph. And it's actually really interesting. This is all from Western Boone County. So there are these tiny little communities out there in the western part of of this county. So that represents that part of our service area for sure. Yeah, now, so we've got the One Read 20th anniversary collection. Really excited about this. We have launched this last week, and it's actually this week, and it's got so many great photographs of our One Read program that started in 2002. This was actually the exhibit from 2004 when Barbara Ehrenreich's Nickel and Dime was the book. Great photos of her and some of the other librarians that were helping out with it. So I think this is a really great addition to our collection. It's kind of tangentially part of the Daniel Boone Regional Library collection because it's all in-house photographs. But there's so much, I am especially fond of the photographs of T.C. Boyle. Let me just show you real quickly. So Cecilia Curtin was, and he's just such a fascinating, so here he is at the University of Missouri bookstore talking to somebody, and he's obviously like, he really, really enjoys this kind of author visit type thing, and just great photographs of him and some other authors just having a great time and enjoying their time here with One Read. So some other parts of the collection. We've had this Missouri Bicentennial collection we put up in the mid part of this year. Some really interesting things we're adding to this. It's a small collection, but some of you probably have heard of the Columbia Professional World. It was the African-American newspaper published in the early 1900s in Columbia. So we actually digitized the index for that. And really, I think the index in particular is really interesting and quite helpful for genealogists working on the history of early 1900s Columbia, and specifically the Black community here. We also had this really interesting picture. I think this is called Souvenir of Picturesque Columbia. We digitized. Lots of great photos in that of some of the old buildings in Columbia. And we also digitized the Columbia, Missouri Herald 25th anniversary edition. This is a basically E.W. Stevens and Walter Williams sat down and wrote a pretty comprehensive history of this area. Of course, it's many ways very biased in the sense that it is a particularly it's a history of the white elite in this area, but it has a lot of very interesting biographical sketches as well as some fascinating photographs in there as well. So check that out. There's some really great stuff. And then our community yearbook archive. So that particular archive is used quite extensively by researchers who are either looking at the history of the school systems in this area, or if you just want to look at some of your relatives. I like to look at the old Hickman high school yearbooks because both my uncles are in there. And I have my family goes back many generations in Missouri, and especially we've always been kind of in and out of mid-Missouri too. So those are really, that's a great archive, and check all these out. We've actually got more coming up as we add to this. So I think this is an ongoing project. In fact, we're adding more, we're adding a lot more photographs to our Oneroom collection in the next week or so. Some of the cool things you can do with it, you can search collections by decade. So it starts from really the 1860s and then all the way to the current time. For instance, like last year's Oneroom, we've got photographs from that. You can also browse by collection. So if you want to just go to the Oneroom collection, you just click on Browse and then Collections, and then click on Oneroom or our Daniel Boone Regional Library collection, or whatever one you're looking for. And also browse by subject. We have literally dozens and hundreds of subjects that are part of this initiative that I've linked up to Library of Congress subject headings. So it's very easy to browse for particular items and subjects that you might be looking for. For instance, like underground newspapers, even particular music bands. You can look up in this because there were so many great bands that Boone Stiegel wrote about in Trouble with Normal. Just phenomenal stuff. All the great Blue Note concerts in the 1990s. Some stuff of music, some music legends for sure. Yeah, and browsing by decade can also do that. This is the 1890s. Most of the stuff that's pulling up is from the Midway Oneroom Schoolhouse collection or the Southern Boone County Historical Society collection. So you can view PDF versions of the underground music zine, Trouble with Normal. And that's something you can download and print out if you want. That's a really strong point of this platform we're using. It's very accessible for printing out documents and photographs. You can also filter by subjects. It's another strong point by this of this collective access system that we use to host it. So there are many ways to access this collection, and I think it's user friendly to researchers as opposed to some other content management systems that archives use. So we do have some collection parameters. Our copyright information, we're under a Creative Commons license. It's a Creative Commons attributions, non-commercial and no derivatives license. So that pretty, it's a fair use type assignment of copyright, but some of our photographs and other items could be under more stringent copyright. So it's always good to contact us if you're using some of these photographs for if you're going to publish them with something, it's always good to contact us about that. So this is a little bit more about Creative Commons. It's a pretty great way to get a lot of, and one of the reasons we're using this is because the Digital Public Library of America was using it. So it is a free copyright licensing agreement that we've used quite extensively in a lot of our work here, even outside of the archive. Just a little bit more information about that. And we do, so one of the things I do want to mention is we are interested in more collaboration. So for instance, if the Muleskinners, if you have an archive of photographs, documents, anything that you would like preserved, we are constantly looking for materials. So if, you know, I know some people have deposited their archives with the State Historical Society of Missouri. And what we're trying to do is find the nooks and crannies where people would actually like these to be presented in a digital format and not, you know, just in a box, in a manuscript box somewhere, and visible to the wider public. We do have some restrictions and copyright form, permission to digitize form that we would ask people loaning out materials to fill out. Yeah, so some of the strengths of this collection is that we are purely a digital archive. We don't really have anything in terms of physical collections here. We do have some local history materials, but this is all basically a digitized material that has been returned to the original owner, or it is in-house material that we've digitized here that that we feel like is, especially some of the history of our library system, it's really important to get out there for people to see. Yeah, some of the research you could do: historic library buildings, one-room schoolhouses in rural America, local music history, radios, farms, library programming. The list is pretty extensive of what the community history archive could be used for. And one thing I want to talk about a little bit is we in addition to this, and I mentioned this very early on, we do have a scanning project here that's ongoing, where we help people scan their photographs, documents, anything that is in your personal archive. And this is kind of in tandem with a course we used to teach called personal archiving. It's no longer taught, or at least it's on hiatus right now because of COVID, unfortunately. And we're not working with people one-on-one with scanning right now either. All that got put on hold. I hope we can start it up again soon. We'll just see where things go. We do feel like it's an important part of this whole initiative, and it's really helped many people get their archives in order, get things digitized. I know in particular, some people have brought in a lot of family photographs that have been handed down to them. We can also digitize slides as well, and film negatives. So that's been a really cool part of this project. It's kind of this really neat hands-on part of it. None of it has been put on this platform just because we're not really presenting personal genealogical items. This is more, we're trying to present items from community organizations and things like that. But we have felt like this has been a really important project on two levels, both helping people get their personal archives sorted through and digitized, as well as getting some photographs and documents out there for the wider public to view as well. I love this. Many of you might know we used to have a circulating art collection. That was here in place until the 1980s. You could check out art and put it on your wall for a while. And, you know, I think it's a great idea. Kind of one of those really very interesting parts of our library system that was innovative and set the precedent for checking out telescopes and a lot of the other stuff items that we check out here as well. Yeah, so if you're interested in collaborating on any level, you would just let me know. And really, there's a main email for that. It's archive@dbrl.org. So someone can access that. If I'm not here, you can also email me directly. And that's my email address. If you have items that you think an organization might want to digitize, please let me know. It's an ongoing effort. And, I think we can eventually, we're not, it's a small project. It's not a huge, we don't, like I said, we don't have a large scale digital lab or anything like that, but we do have a footprint now in the historical digital world, which I think is really, really important, and it's pretty exciting. So at this point, it's like we have about 8 minutes for questions. Yeah, David.
Yeah, a couple of questions. I think you mentioned this in the beginning, but I didn't jot it down. How does one get to these archives? I went over and brought up the Daniel Boone, the DBRL org, but I don't see the archive dropping down. So I'm like,
oh yeah. So let me actually get to this real quick here. So it's actually archive.dbrl.org, and that's the homepage address. And this is what it'll look like right here. So yeah, that's pretty short. And you can also access it from our homepage as well.
Could you put that other slide up where you had that website and your contact information, Seth?
Oh, sure. I'll put it back up here. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Seth, you said you can get to the archives from the DBRL homepage?
You should be able to, yeah. I'll show you the route for that. If you go to www.dbrl.org, and then research and learn, and then community history archive. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
No problem.
The other question, you mentioned there's kind of a backlog of things to do. You don't have maybe all the resources you need. Do you have a need for volunteers to help with this project, or is it more a matter of the physical limitations of the technology?
we were using volunteers, and we do have a need for that. At this point, we kind of shut down our volunteer program. It's on hiatus as well, just because of liability, I think, with COVID. So we, once we really put this behind us and fully open up, I think we'd definitely be interested in volunteers for sure. Yeah, we've had some great volunteer help.
I have one other question. It's kind of a side. You mentioned about the controversy of the rebuilding of the library. For those of us who weren't here in Columbia then, or are just arriving, could you put more detail on that? Sounds interesting. I'd like to know the background of that.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Basically, I think it was 1998, or a little bit earlier than that. And I wasn't here either, but I think the history is there was a bond issue that was put out for building and someone correct me if I'm not quite right about this, for building or adding on to this particular library. And it was put in the words of remodeling. That particular remodeling looked like a vast demolition project to most people. And it did. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it was not necessarily fit. But regardless, we needed a larger space, and we got this beautiful new building, which people absolutely love. But it was I think there was a little bit. I think people were wondering a little bit about the transparency of the wording, and when it happened, and there was some controversy for sure with that. But this all occurred in 2001 and 2002.
It was a huge controversy at the time. My father was on the library board representing California. But yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the old library was much beloved, but
Yes.
way too small.
Way too small.
So, and it was a demo job. There was no remodeling to it.
No.
Took it down.
We were here, but we had just moved to Columbia, and they transferred all the books to another temporary place,
Yeah.
and tore down the entire library except for a stairwell in the center of the building.
Right.
And that was still standing, and all the rest of it was gone. So I heard a rumor, or maybe I made it up myself, I can't remember, that it had to do with tax purpose. As long as you leave a portion of it up, then you haven't demolished entirely. You're just remodeling, and that had a difference in taxes. But anyone know? I was just a rumor I heard.
I don't know about that. I just know that I mean there were little, it wasn't it wasn't quite as transparent as some people wanted it to be, I think.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Getting back to the digitization issues.
Yeah.
Do you coordinate at all with the Boone County Historical Society? They've digitized a lot of stuff too, and there might be an overlap.
Yeah, so there is some overlap. We did have some initial conversations with them about it, and I think we were interested in collaborating in the future as well. I know they have a pretty nice lab, and they're doing those. They have really concentrated on those glass plate negatives, and which is beautiful. And so we're trying to do a little bit of a different thing in terms of, and we definitely don't ever want to step on any toes. And we're trying to find the nooks and crannies that people, for smaller organizations or stuff like that. The zine from Boone Stiegel, that unique, unusual artifacts that could be digitized. It might not necessarily end up in any archive physically, but something that we could present here. But yeah, we've had some just great discussions with them about future collaboration.
I know I've taken some documents to them because I knew they would digitize them or do something with them, put them in their collection. And it sounds like this is something that would be also appropriate for your projects.
Yeah, for sure.
Seems like one significant difference is that you guys don't keep the original, right?
Exactly.
So it seems conceivable that you take something to you, have it digitized, and then take it and donate it to either the county or the state historical society.
Yeah, and
all that would just increase the access to it, I guess. Yeah.
Right. We don't have the physical archive capacity. This is something I would like to see maybe with us have. For instance, if we were up to open up a different branch, having a local history center or something like that would really be cool. Like we could have all our physical archives there, but at this point it's mostly digital, and I really think I really think that that's a super strong point behind this, because we can digitize items and then return it to the original owner if they want it back, back in their house or with relatives or something like that too, or with, in terms of organizations might want their materials back.
I had another thought. Have you ever contacted Richard King to see what records from the Blue Note in its older?
That's a great. I have one of my friends is a former colleague of mine, Kevin Walsh, and I've thought about he's actually he has some really interesting ideas about a collaboration like that. I think that would that would be really amazing. And one of the really cool things about the Boone Stiegel collection is that there are some photographs in there as well, from a place called the Ranch, which was an underground music venue in Columbia. No longer exists, but also the Blue Note and Shattered. If you remember, it was another club here. Being a Gen Xer and, you know, living in Columbia as in grad school in the early 2000s, I mean, I was reading about shows that I had gone to, and it's just pretty amazing.
Well, as a member of a little older generation, the Blue Note and its predecessor, the 18th Amendment, had some pretty amazing acts back in the 70s.
Yeah.
80s. So I just thought maybe that would be a good partner.
Yeah.
Heck, Johnny Cash came here in the 90s and I missed him more than one time, I heard.
Yeah, I think there's a write-up of that in the Trouble with Normal. And then there's also some just amazing stuff that it would be really cool to get part of. I mean, in the early 80s, bands like REM, Red Hot Chili Peppers, I mean, a lot of the bands, the greatest bands of all time, you know, came through the Blue Note on Business Loop, which is just kind of this dive, just a great, you know, underground music scene.
I had a question, or actually a comment. All the Cooper's Landing prior to Richard King, there's a group that's been filming all those musicians for a number of years. Something Missouri River Conservatory.
Right.
And that would be a great group. I mean, they just have all these musicians. They've been doing it for years. Have you ever been in touch with them, Seth, or can I help you get contact information?
That would be awesome. Yeah, and we are also interested in showing videos as well.
Yeah,
so,
a lot of it, it's mostly videos of these musicians playing for a number of years. They've and if they wanted to share that and get that in your collection, that would be so awesome. I can't think of the names of the musicians who've even passed, like Forrest Rose, that are probably part of that collection, but an amazing musical history of the Columbia area. So I'll get you some contact information for that because I know a lot of those river rats.
Sounds great.
I'm going to write that down. Great.
This is Carl. There's also a connection with my wife just reminded me, but I'm associated with KOPN in a musical way, but KOPN has tremendously long historical archives in terms of what they were involved in and so on. That may be another data source, if you will.
Yes.
They're going to move soon, so they're going to be wanting to get rid of a lot of stuff, and they might really like to have it digitized.
Yeah, and any if you want to send me an email with any contact information, that would be great. We are a little limited in terms of our workflow, you know, in terms of the speed we can get stuff up, because it's we're fitting these projects in around, you know, a lot of other projects too. But I think once we you know, we've done this, we've gotten this going, and it's 3 years. It's now 3 years since we started it. I think it's really been pretty successful, and we're interested in definitely doing some more stuff.
Seth, are you still the host for the meeting?
I think I am. I can do I unhost myself here?
That'd be a Pam question. We're set up for only having one host at a time for some.
Oh, okay. let me see. I think if I end my part of it, is that?
It'll either go back to Pam or it'll
shut it down. Okay.
Well,
If there's a way you can transfer it back to Pam, that might be safer.
Okay, let's try that. Okay, let me.
Just if you don't need your screen sharing.
Oh, I know, no. Let me figure out. Let's see.
While he's
Pam,
working
you're
on
on mute. We can't hear you, Pam.
no.
Find my name, go to the right.
Yep.
And it
Make
says
host.
make
Yep.
me host.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, you did it.
It says
Cool.
Pam's the host now. Good. I
Okay.
want to pass along just a brief note as an aside. I got a message here from Scott Crystal, who had to leave our meeting, but he said, I don't think we covered this in our announcements at the beginning. On Wednesday, September 22nd, there's going to be a follow-up to the May event that we did with the Republicans. This will be Show Me the Money, talking about how the city and the county, Columbia and Boone, raise, budget, and spend money along with the state restrictions or lack thereof. So it'll be at the American Legion Hall on Highway WW. So that's September 22nd coming up on Wednesday.
June Pitchford will be the speaker.
Okay, so we'll get more information on that later, but you might want to mark it on your calendars on September 22nd. You know, save the date there that night. All right, so I didn't mean to interrupt there, Seth. I thought we better get this out before I forget it.
No, well, thanks so much for having me. And again, just keep an eye out for when we open up again for assisting people with personal archiving. I think that's a really good part of this project, as well as the community archive itself. So appreciate you having me. I'll speak anytime you want, and have a great rest of your meeting.
You bet. Thank you very much, Seth. Appreciate you being here.